Okay, Lucas. So we gotta figure this out. We gotta do it straight up, and we gotta do it right away. I mean, I think I have a pretty good idea of who your favorite kid is on the Magic School Bus.
Well, yeah, no, you'd think it's really a toss-up between two, right?
Between two, you say?
Yeah, it's a neck-and-neck 50-50 race between one Carlos and one Arnold, okay?
Sure. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. My guess was going to be Carlos, but that 50-50 split, I believe that. And I think you and I are pretty united in being fans of Arnold.
Yeah, I mean, Carlos has got the quips, Carlos has got the zags, but I haven't actually seen Magic School Bus in a very long time, not since I was a really young kid, so I maybe there's a bit of a recency bias, but there's some pretty fantastic Arnold moments in this episode that we're watching today.
That's right, here on For the Kids, a PBS Kids podcast. Today, we're tackling, well, one of the biggest shows that we've done thus far. Chances are that if you're anywhere close to our age, or even a bit younger, you've seen this show. It's the Magic School Bus. My name's Will Young, and I'm joined by Lucas Mancini for this look back into our history here. So I think it's pretty safe to say that you and I both watched this as kids.
Yeah, I think, I don't even know if it's people of a certain age. I think it's just fairly unavoidable no matter what age you are. They probably still play the Magic School Bus, no?
Well, in a sense, yes. I mean, it is, we'll get into it a bit more in the history, but they've got the new revival series, and it's been on Netflix for the past, 7 years or so. So it's still really readily accessible.
Not to part the curtain too much, I was surprised. Usually you're sending me some sketchy link to watch what episodes we're watching this week. But this time I logged onto the old Netflix machine.
Excellent. And I did the same as well, since I have purchased Netflix for exactly 1 month to watch all of The Last Dance and then immediately cancel.
Ooh, you're taking the dive in?
I will be very soon. By the time we start season 10 of Arthur, I will have started watching.
We might have to do a Patreon exclusive Last Dance. I gotta know what non-sports fan Will has to say about the Last Dance, because I have a feeling you'll really enjoy it.
I think I will too. That's actually a pretty good idea. So I'll keep mum on that for now, and I'll let you know how I progress, and maybe we can take a break from PBS for 1 week and talk about The Last Dance. But going back here to the Magic School Bus, I guess I should let you guess. Who do you think my favorite Magic School Bus kid is?
I mean, it's got to be Arnold, right?
It's not. Arnold is, I'd say, my number 2.
Interesting. I don't know. Wanda?
No, but good guess. I'd say Wanda's in the top 5.
Well, I'm running out of guesses. Who is it?
Oh, it's got to be my boy Ralphie.
Ralphie's a solid pick. Ralphie might be best dressed.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, there's a lot of people and types of people represented on the show, which I'm very happy about, including the slovenly white guy. So I saw myself at an early age in Ralphie. The oversized T-shirt, the baseball cap, the paunch, it's all there. I basically am Ralphie still today with a beard. So yeah, we're going to be talking about the Magic School Bus, and I feel like I don't want to keep saying this, but obviously had to do a ton of research for this show, and it took me quite a while to kind of amass everything and get everything from every angle. And I'd say this is the most researched so far. And then when I was done, it took me a couple of hours. And then when I was done, I'm like, oh man, what are we going to do when we talk about Sesame Street?
Oh my goodness gracious.
It's going to be like a 2-parter.
Yeah, maybe. That really deserves its due diligence.
Yeah, we might have to come at that from a different way. But the Magic School Bus, so of course, didn't actually start off as a TV show. So I'm wondering, Lucas, where did you first encounter the Magic School Bus? In what form?
It was a book series, correct?
That's right.
I don't know. It's funny. My first interaction with the Magic School Bus was probably one of the desktop PC games or something.
Interesting. Yeah.
In all honesty, that or the TV show.
So it actually goes books, then TV show, then the video games at the same time as the TV show. Interesting. Okay. So yeah, that's where we kind of start off with this history section, talking about the development of the Magic School Bus as a book series. So the idea for the series started with the vice president and senior editorial director at Scholastic, Craig Walker. So Scholastic, of course, behind those book orders that people of our age hold dearly in their heart.
Oh yes, of course. That's how. Where else would I get? An Atticus Finch book, as well as a copy of Axis and Allies for the personal computer.
Where am I going to get Artemis Fowl Book 3?
Yeah, exactly. Where else could I buy? Now I'm trying to...
Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yes, volumes 1 through 48 of the Magic Treehouse.
Yes. Or the Time Warp Trio, as we were talking about on the Discord. Scholastic, Craig Walker at Scholastic had the idea of combining science with stories, combining science with fiction. How novel. This is back in the 80s. And he also wanted to represent the idea of going on field trips, which as a kid he found very exciting. So what he did was he hired a writer named Joanna Cole and an illustrator named Bruce Deegan to write the Magic School Bus book series. Joanna Cole is a writer who's written over 250 children's books and based Miss Frizzle off of one of her teachers. And Bruce Deegan has illustrated over 40 children's books. So together they created the first book, which was called The Magic School Bus at the Waterworks, published in 1986. So I want to say that I probably would have discovered the series around the same time as the books. Like one probably fed into the other, essentially. So it's hard for me to say which one I kind of encountered first. Probably the books, just because the show debuted when I was 4, so I'm going to say I probably read the books first and then was drawn to the TV show from there. So there's 13 books in the original series. Interestingly enough, the 13th book in the Magic School Bus series will be released this July. It's going to be called The Magic School Bus Explores Human Evolution.
Has there been like a big gap? Or has it been like one book every 5 years or something crazy like that?
So there were a bunch of them in like the 80s and 90s, and then they kind of slowed down. And then the most recent one before this, I'm going to double check my source here, but guess what it is. I think it was like back in 2010, so there was a bit of a gap. So it's just kind of like, I guess, when the idea strikes them or something. And maybe as different scientific ideas come into being accepted. Like I'm sure that when this book comes out, the Magic School Bus Explores Human Evolution, there's going to be the obligatory people kicking up a fuss about evolution, but there probably would have been more so, 20 years ago or what have you. So maybe this is the best time to be doing it. So this is the first Magic School Bus book in 10 years to be released. The last one was the Magic School Bus and the Climate Challenge in 2010. So kind of...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. See, again, it's like, then we're talking about climates and probably global warming, which is still hotly debated, unfortunately. And aside from the original kind of children's picture books, there's over 100 books in the series across various spin-off series. So there's like different types of chapter books for different levels of readers. There's like a spin-off of series of books with Liz and all this kind of stuff. So pretty lucrative book series before it became anything else. Scholastic decided to adapt the books into a show to continue pursuing a fun way for kids to learn, according to Scholastic Entertainment president Deborah Forte at the time. This I actually found really cool. So Forte was sensitive to concerns from the audience, so parents and teachers, about improving science education for girls and children of color, which influenced the cast, because it's a very diverse show, and it never really occurred to me that this was at a time, the early 90s, when there was starting to be more of a focus on letting different people other than white guys into the field of science.
Well, yeah, and you see a similar kind of. I mean, this is maybe even a little bit earlier than the '80s, but you kind of see a similar initiative in a show like you mentioned off the top, Sesame Street, right?
Yeah.
Sesame Street takes place in a kind of an urban community, and I mean urban in the literal sense in terms of like it's within the city.
Yes.
And has a diverse cast as a result. And so it's kind of it fits well within kind of the PBS milieu where you look at this, you look at Zoom, you look at Sesame Street, it all kind of makes sense.
Yeah, of course. So they did end up going ahead with the series. It aired from September 1994 to December 1997. So from the time when I was 4 to when I was 7. Lucas, you would have been 2 to 5? Is that 1994 to 1997?
97? Yeah, I would have been the ripe old age of 2.
In 1997?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Okay. See, I still can't exactly remember our age gap, so I kind of had to make a guess there. So yeah, and of course, I was pleased to see that it originally aired on PBS before anywhere else. Magic School Bus, the first fully animated PBS show that had ever aired.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of have the Magic School Bus to thank for the podcast that we do today. It broke ground. The show was developed by 3 women, Allison Blank, who is a producer for a show I've never heard of called Voyagers. It's all about kind of going back in time, like a kid who goes back in time and it doesn't rewrite history, but make sure history happens the way it's supposed to. It's kind of sounded interesting, live action. Kristen Laskus Martin, who is an executive producer and writer for Cyberchase. So think about that, about the mind behind Cyberchase was also somebody who developed the Magic School Bus. And when you think about that, it's like there is a lot of similarity between the two.
Yeah, I was actually, that's funny you mentioned that. I mean, we'll get into it when we are talking about the episode proper, but sometimes it kind of reminded me of Cyberchase.
And the third developer is Jane Starts, who is still active today as a producer of various TV shows and movies. So it got 4 seasons, 54 episodes. It was among the highest rated PBS shows for school-age children at the time. So it did its initial run on PBS that ended at the end of 1997. Then the Fox network purchased it in 1998 after PBS decided to stop airing it in order to make room for other kids' shows. So then Magic School Bus ran on Fox Kids until 2002, kind of like Liberty's Kids, to fulfill the educational mandate from the FCC. And the only difference between the PBS version and the Fox Kids version is that they cut out the producer segments at the end in order to put more commercials in there. So I definitely remember seeing the Magic School Bus on Fox Kids.
I never had Fox Kids back in the day, so it was exclusively PBS fare for me.
I see. So it also aired on TLC and Discovery Kids, where you may have seen it in the USA. Here in Canada, it was also on Teletoon and on something called the Knowledge Network, which I found out is public television in British Columbia. So if we have any patrons out in British Columbia, and you might have seen it on the Knowledge Network. And, of course, it has been available on Netflix since 2013, where you can see all of the episodes. And, yeah, you can also find it not on Netflix like we did. The lurid links, as you mentioned, Lucas.
Netflix version, important to highlight, does include the producer segments. It is not the Fox Kids version.
Yes, thankfully. And that's, sometimes those are the best parts of the show. Let's talk for a second here about the theme song, which this unfortunately is one of the bigger coincidences that we could have ended up with because, the theme song that practically everybody knows, it was written by a guy named Peter Lurie, who did the theme songs for shows like Bear in the Big Blue House, My Life as a Teenage Robot, Teacher's Pet, and Dora the Explorer. And of course, it was immaculately performed by Little Richard, may he rest in peace, the legendary rock musician who, we're recording this on the 19th. Little Richard, I think, died last week?
Oh my goodness gracious, I had no idea this was Little Richard.
Oh my God, once you understand who Little Richard, once you hear a Little Richard song, it's impossible not to hear that as anybody else, except maybe depending on the song, like James Brown. But yeah, no, it's Little Richard. It's got all of the little isms. The thing is that the Magic School Bus theme song is really hard to like sing along to, I've always found, because of the way that Little Richard sings it. He does it in his style, and so it's kind of almost hard to tell what the lyrics are. Do you know what I mean?
You're cruising down. I know exactly what you mean. The way he enunciates it's hard to follow. There's a lot of ups and downs.
Exactly, because he puts his little Richard spin on it. So like you get to the part where it's like, take a second right past Mars, the Navigator. It's like, like you watch it and it's like mixing with the diegetic sound effects, and I'm like, well, where did he start singing? Like, what is this? But it's a great theme song, and it's classic. It's like it gets you ready for the show. I mean, what do you think about it?
Oh, no. I'm a big fan of the Magic School Bus theme song. It very much, what I like about it too is that there's parts of it that show clips from episodes. And so those like specific moments are so imprinted on my brain. For instance, even Baked Into a Pie. We were talking about when we were trying to decide, what episode we were going to watch this week. That was like one of the ones that my mind immediately went to, because I so remember in the theme song the threat of them being baked into a pie.
And it's a very good episode. I would recommend that anybody, if you're inspired to watch the Magic School Bus, have that be part of your watch list. It's really, really funny. I want to move on now to talk about the voice cast a little bit. So sometimes, we get, it's a mix of people and people that you quote unquote know. Like, I'm a big geek for voice actors, so there's a bunch of people here that I recognize, and I wanted to see if you did too. So of course, gotta first mention Miss Frizzle, voiced by the wonderful Lily Tomlin, celebrated actor, comedian, and singer. She actually won an Emmy for Outstanding Performer in an Animated Program in 1996 for her portrayal of Miss Frizzle, and most recently, she played the role of Aunt May in Enter the Spider-Verse.
Oh, wow. Okay, yes. No, Miss Frizzle, probably the most iconic voice performance from the Magic School Bus, right? Like, make mistakes, get messy. Who could forget? That's all her delivery. That's all, like, there's sort of a, Miss Frizzle, a very recognizable silhouette of a character, like the way she dresses.
Yes.
It's immediately recognizable, but so much of that still comes through the vocal performance well. It's just a perfect voice for the characterization.
She puts such a zest on it that it really endears you to the character right away. And, of course, to go along with the funky design and you're right, the unique silhouette. So here's a couple more that you may or may not recognize. First of all, the voice actor playing Arnold in the episode we watched here, his name is Amos Crawley. He is also the voice of Owl on Little Bear. He was the voice of Martin the Warrior in Redwall, and he was the voice of Alexander on Babar. So as soon as I heard Arnold, I'm like, I know him from somewhere, and it was actually his Owl. Like, I remember the voice of Owl from Little Bear.
Oh, really? Not Martin the Warrior, as we've checked in with that so recently.
No, I never made it that far in Redwall, but, whenever you watch a Little Bear, Owl was one of my favorite characters, so then I remember exactly what he sounds like. Another Canadian actor here, Daniel DeSanto, is Carlos, who I feel has a really distinct presence on Canadian TV. He's got a bunch of credits that I didn't want to get into the weeds with it, because I know that we have a few Canadian patrons, but not everybody does. But you may recognize him as one of the main kids from Are You Afraid of the Dark? His character's name was Tucker.
Yes, just not Ryan Gosling.
No, I'm afraid not. There was Erica Luttrell as Keisha, who you may recognize as Sapphire from Steven Universe, and she also played Emily Caldwin, the player character in Dishonored 2, which I thought was cool. And Lisa Yamanaka as Wanda, who played 2 roles on Babar. She was also Erika on Metabots, which I immediately was like, that's right, I remember that voice very well.
Oh my goodness, yes, that's where I would remember her from.
And she was also the voice of Sherry Birkin in the English dub of the original Resident Evil 2. There's also a bunch of guest stars, kind of like how Liberty's Kids had a bunch of surprising people to be guest stars on the show. This is very guest star heavy, so I'll just run you down a list of some of the people that you may recognize if you're going back watching the show. There's people like Dom DeLuise, who is in the Pie episode, and my God,
legend, the legendary Dom DeLuise.
He's so funny. Like, it's every time he's on screen in that episode is just a joy. There's people like Tony Randall, Rita Moreno, Elliot Gould, Eartha Kitt, Edward James Olmos, Ed Asner, Alex Trebek, Dan Marino, Dolly Parton, Malcolm McDowell, and the list just goes on and on. There's a lot of Broadway performers, I noticed, like a lot of musical theater people.
They're looking for that, they're trying to get an easy, what's it called? What is it?
Tax write-off?
No. When you get the Tony, the Oscar, and the Emmy...
the EGOT?
The EGOT. They're all Emmy hunting.
I get you. I don't think any of them were particularly successful, but at least they did try. And it is cool to see, again, a kids show getting this kind of roster of talent. Let's pivot now to the video game series, which, Lucas, I guess you're a little familiar with as well?
Yeah, I used to love the video game series. That's probably, in fact, like more so. It's funny, my experience is a little bit unique. I'm probably more intimately familiar with the point-and-click adventure games than I would be with the show or the books.
So can you explain to our listeners what the idea behind the video games were? Like, what did you do in them?
Well, I mean, they were pretty traditional, like, point-and-click adventure games, but pretty, like, remedial ones, like ones intended for kids. The closest analogy would be sort of the Freddy Fish, Pajama Sam, Putt-Putt school of game design, right? You're just kind of clicking on things in the environment and trying to discern what is like going to open up the next area or what have you, dragging objects onto other objects, and so on and so forth. The Magic School Bus games, it's funny, if you go back, I think there's a Giant Bomb video where they go back and play one of those old Magic School Bus games recently, and like so much of the appeal of those games was just like, we're going to show these kids these like really terrible animations, and they aren't even going to care or notice how bad they are. So when you go back and play them now, they're very dated. It's kind of hilarious. But at the time, I would play them for hours.
I had a bit less experience with them, but I did have a friend who did have a Magic School Bus game that I played a little bit at his house, I remember. So this was...
Specifically, Explores the Solar System was the big one.
Yes.
That I remember.
That was definitely one of the ones I played. The one I played at my friend's house was Explores the Ocean. Because I remember Tim saying, the tide is high a lot.
I think I remember that one too, yeah.
So the video game series produced games from 1994 to 2002 mainly for the PC, but there was a game for Sega Genesis, the Sega Pico, which I had to look up. It's an educational game console that Sega put out in the 90s, as well as for the Nintendo DS and for smartphones. So it did have almost a decade run of these little games, and I think it also helped kids who were more into the stuff in the computer lab to kind of spread the good word of the Magic School Bus. This is also just a fun fact that I got from Wikipedia here. So in 2003, Scholastic, the American Meteorological Society, and the Children's Museum of Houston debuted a traveling exhibit called The Magic School Bus Kicks Up a Storm. And I'm to understand that it was in both Houston, Texas, and New Jersey. If any of our patrons happen to go to this, please let us know. Like, if you can dig up some photos, or if you just remember your time going there, like, I would love to know more about this.
Yeah, it's one of the two spots to visit now in New Jersey. You got to take a picture of Tony Soprano's mansion, and you got to go to the exhibit on the Magic School Bus.
Mm-hmm. So, of course, before we get into the actual PBS show that we're talking about, I wanted to talk about the Revival series. So, I remember a couple of years ago seeing that the Magic School Bus was going to get something of a revival, and it was kind of exciting. Like, it was cool because, of course, nobody's really thought about the show in a long time. And in 2017, they debuted the sequel series, The Magic School Bus Rides Again, and so far it has 2 seasons with 26 episodes. The main differences, of course, are that it's a new Miss Frizzle, played by Kate McKinnon, and the original Miss Frizzle is still around, but she's Professor Frizzle now. But Lily Tomlin still plays her whenever she shows up. The theme song this time is done by Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's just basically a rearrangement, and the lyrics are a lot clearer, which honestly kind of takes it down a point for me. I love the almost chaotic energy of the original theme song. This one's a little bit too prim and proper, like Lin-Manuel Miranda is. And it's done in Flash animation, which I actually... No, you know what? I actually think it's good. I think that the Flash animation is able to make the show a lot more energetic than the original show was. So that's my hot take. I mean,
we might have to agree to disagree on this one. I'm not adverse to, there's incredible things you can accomplish with Flash animation if done properly. Shows like... There's a lot of Cartoon Network shows that still look really good, but there's a specific kind of, and we're going to get into this, on our main show when we eventually get to when Arthur switches to Flash animation, but I can't see past it sometimes. I just have a little bit of an aversion to it.
Yeah, I think part of it is the fact that we grew up with traditional animation for so long, and now Flash is so prevalent that it's... if it really doesn't work for you, then it's kind of everywhere. So I can appreciate that. If it's not your thing, then it probably won't work for you. I thought that so I watched the first episode of the first season of The Revival this morning, just to kind of get an idea for it. I liked it. It's mainly a case of it being not better or worse than the original show. It's just different. It's largely the same cast of kids. They just have new designs. They take Phoebe out and put in a new kid, which I thought was funny because the line is like, "Oh yeah, Phoebe went back to her old school," and it just seems like they gave her the bum's rush off the show. Kate McKinnon's good. I think she's a little overwritten at times, but I think she performs really well. They get a little bit cute in that first episode about like, oh, everything's a little bit different, but it's going to be kind of the same as well. And I thought that it actually had a lot more. The pace was a bit quicker, a little bit more kinetic than the original show, and that was helped a lot by the animation. So I think it's neither better nor worse. It just is kind of more of this, and it's cool that we can have something, because I imagine there are a lot of kids who might watch the original show and be like, "Oh, this looks weird." It's like when we used to watch Hanna-Barbera cartoons when we were younger, just like, "Oh, this animation looks old." You know what I mean?
That's where we diverge. Even when I was younger, I was like, "This looks freaking awesome."
Well, don't get me wrong.
When I saw old Hanna-Barbera cartoons, I do like the idea though that is one thing I noticed, that it is paced. I think educational television, with the exception of Arthur, was paced very differently at the time the Magic School Bus came out.
Yeah.
So I think that is compare that to something like The Amazing World of Gumball, which isn't necessarily educational, but goes at such a rapid fire clip that Magic School Bus comparatively looks like slower than molasses. So it's nice to see that they've kind of, to update it for a modern era, updated the pace. That being said, Will, I'm looking at this trailer again, and I gotta say, it kind of looks like a little bit like a Family Guy cartoon, and I'm not a fan. But that's just me.
I wouldn't say that. But I like you so offered, agree to disagree. The animation will either work for you or it won't. But I'd say if you're holding out for some reason, like on grounds of like, oh, it's not the same thing, like just give it a try. Again, I'm just glad the kids kind of have something that is a bit more at their speed for right now. And what I said about Hanna-Barbera, don't get me wrong, I watched plenty of Scooby-Doo and Flintstones, but sometimes I wasn't in the mood. I was in the mood for something flashier, something new, something edgy when I was a kid. So we're certainly not immune to that. Anyway, that's a bit of history of the Magic School Bus there. It was actually really cool to learn where the ideas came from and how it kind of spun itself into this big franchise and is still going. And the episode we're looking at today is, I believe it's the second episode of the first season. It's really, really early into it. We're looking at the Magic School Bus for Lunch. I wanted to give a quick shout out here to the writers of the show, because there's 4 writers on this episode. So first of all, there's Ellen Schechter, who was also a writer for Reading Rainbow. There's John May, who is a writer for both the Magic School Bus and Rides Again. He also wrote for Sticking Around and Yvonne of the Yukon, among other shows.
Oh, that's another cursed Patreon episode someday. Maybe we'll talk about Yvonne of the Yukon and why it's a problem.
I'm pretty sure that Yvonne of the Yukon probably got thrown out of PBS if they ever darkened the door. But yes, maybe that'll be the next thing. Going through each episode of the Yvonne of the Yukon and saying, well, that's problematic. The other writers include Brian Meal, who is actually a Muppeteer. He worked on like a couple of Muppet movies and The Dark Crystal, and he also wrote for shows like Cyberchase and Between the Lions. And the head writer of the show, Jocelyn Stevenson, who also wrote for Cyberchase and was a producer for shows like Thomas and Friends, Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, which I was very excited about, and Bob the Builder. So, quite the writing cast that we have here. Let's get into the episode here. Again, the Magic School Bus for lunch. Love the opening of the show. I know we already talked about the theme song, but the animation is fantastic in the opening. So it's bouncy.
True. The way, bouncy is exactly the right word. The way they transfer from kind of one setting to an next of like, these are all the possible adventures you could go on the Magic School Bus.
And it makes it seem awesome. And you kind of mentioned a couple of minutes ago that sometimes educational type shows can seem really dry, depending on how they're presented. Like, completely opposite for the Magic School Bus. This seemed cool, and I think it speaks volumes that, Fox Kids bought the show and felt it could compete on Fox Kids with all the other action-oriented shows that it had. Now, granted, I know it was for, educational requirements, but I wouldn't put, like, a Liberty's Kids on Fox Kids, Magic School Bus is like, it's got a pace, it goes, and it's like fun and interesting and has cool ideas.
Well, I also think it's also not very grounded, right? I think they're afforded, it's the Magic School Bus. And so that adds a certain, I think, especially at this time, educational television was kind of adverse, and they're a little tongue-in-cheek about this when they address it in the producer segments, but they didn't want to be too magical or too fantastic because that kind of gets away from the educational aspect. You're supposed to be making kids learn something about reality. But the Magic School Bus is able to kind of have its cake and eat it too, in that they're teaching all these scientific concepts while also having a crazy, living, flying school bus.
And having their cake and eating it too is kind of what the episode's about. They're talking about they're going to be doing a project the kids are on, I think just eating in general or like digestion, the human digestive system. And we actually focus in on Arnold's chewing. So apologies to anybody who has misophonia who starts watching this episode and sees Arnold chewing gum.
Yeah, Arnold could have a lucrative career in ASMR.
Gum smacking for 2 hours, trying to break the record.
Exactly.
I don't know. Oh God, I can't imagine anybody falling asleep to the sound of gum chewing. Like I don't have.
Do I have some YouTube links for you, my friend? No, I'm just kidding.
I guess there's gotta be somebody out there. So yeah, Arnold's chewing gum he's been doing it for over 2 hours to try and break the school gum chewing record, and because they want to get a prize to Action World, I believe it was. I almost want to say Action Park because that's the park in New Jersey that the bunch of people died at, but it's not that one.
Action Mountain. It's funny. The slide itself looks like the lower intestine.
Yeah. Oh my God. You're totally right. I'm just at that part in the episode right now. Man, good eye. So yeah, they're having these class presentations. Arnold accidentally swallows the gum, which I've never been able to find a definitive answer. I know that the idea is that it takes like 7 years for your body to break down the gum, or other times it's like, it's not that big a deal. And I don't know, is swallowing gum all that bad?
I don't know. That's one of those like urban legend things where people would be like, it stays in your intestinal tract for 7 years, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to come clean. This is a hot take on the podcast. This is behind the paywall. I don't care if I get canceled for this one.
Uh-oh.
I'd be out here swallowing my gum. I've been doing it for years. Nothing bad's happened to me. I'm still here. So.
Okay. I mean, interesting. I did that when I first discovered what gum was. Like that, I did that all the time. And then my mother was like, "Don't do that. It's gonna stay in your stomach forever or whatever." But I never really got confirmation or denial on that. And I mean, as much as we encounter the gum later in Arnold's system, this is a cartoon, so who's to say? So Arnold accidentally swallows the gum. He feels really bad about it, and he gets kind of depressing at points in this episode. This is why I wasn't so much of a fan of Arnold as a kid, but as an adult, I relate to Arnold quite a bit. As a big old wiener kid. My favorite part of this is that, they're going out for a field trip, and then Arnold's like, I don't know, Miss Frizzle, I already ruined the day for Wanda. Who's to say I'm not going to ruin this field trip? And so I figured this was going to be the part where Miss Frizzle's like, oh, Arnold, you don't ruin things. And she's like, well, you can always stay behind. You don't want to ruin things. I'm like, oh, that's really mean.
Well, no, Miss Frizzle is just recognizing, she's a woman of science, and what more irrefutable science is there than bad vibes? And so when the vibes is off, Arnold, you can stay home.
Well, yeah, you know what? You're probably more right than you realize. Miss Frizzle is all good vibes. She's consistently positive about everything. There's only a couple of times I can remember her frowning or being upset about something. So she's constant.
Yeah, dare I say Miss Frizzle is vibing.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. So the field trip, which they don't reveal to Arnold, is that they're going to go into his digestive system, as he has. I wrote them down as cheesies, but they're not called cheesies in the show. They're like
cheese puffs or something.
Yeah, they're like cheese wheezies or cheesy weenies or something. I don't know. It seems like every kids show that featured cheesies in it had to call them something. How Sticking Around had cheese poopers.
Well, the cheesy is a local colloquialism. We only call them cheesies because of Hawkins Cheesies, good Newfoundland company. Okay, but most people would probably know them as some sort of cheese puff or Cheetos.
Yes.
But yeah, if you're part of our American listeners, look up Hawkins Cheesies.
Yeah, cheese puffs I think is the appropriate nomenclature, but they'll always be cheesies to me. In fact, I have them written down as such. So they shrink down. Arnold's having his whatever you'd call them non-problematic cheese puff. And they go in through his mouth. It kind of takes them a little bit too long to figure out what's going on. They're like, look at those weird white bus crushers. And why are the walls dripping? And why is the road all pink? And they're just like, wait a minute.
Someone has a really dumb joke here where they're like, either we're on the world's weirdest cutting board or this is the inside of someone's mouth.
Right. And then they have to take an extra 15 seconds to be like, wait a minute, we're in somebody's mouth? Whose mouth is it? Arnold? Just all right. It's all right, guys. We know what's going on here. Come on. And, of course, Miss Frizzle knows. There is a point after Arnold goes inside. Again, Arnold being the depressed king over here. Just well, there they go. They don't have me to slow them down anymore. By the way, Cheesy Wheezies is their name.
Cheesy Wheezies. That cheese got me wheezing, bro.
By the way, gotta try this. I'm not much for cheesies myself, but I might like them a little better if, like Arnold, I do some cheesies with a green olive chaser. That sounds like two complementary flavor profiles.
Oh, I thought you were gonna quiz me on this one. Lucas, would you eat cheesies with a green olive chaser? Arnold remarks when he's doing this that this is an old trick of his. He's nothing chases cheesies like a green olive. This isn't the first time he's tried this exact combo. And dare I say, I'm curious.
Me too. It's just so rare that I would buy cheesies and olives together. I gotta go for groceries tomorrow, so maybe I'll buy a small bag and a small bottle of each, and I'll report back. I'll let you know.
That's quite a funny grocery order, especially to risk social distancing for. You roll up and you buy, what do you have today, sir? Just one jar of olives and one bag of cheesies.
I mean, I'm going to get other stuff, but, while I'm there, you might as well live a little. Maybe I'm missing out on something. Maybe this is they should have this as a new Pringles flavor or something. Just a general note here, it's kind of funny. There's a lot of people on the cast that are adults playing kids, but sometimes they actually have kids playing kids, and a couple of those kids are clearly going through puberty, namely Tim and Arnold. I don't know if you noticed at various times where, Arnold will say something in a higher pitch, and then a scene later he'll be just a little bit deeper.
Ooh, I didn't pick up on that, but I do really like Arnold's voice.
Yeah, I think it's really good. They actually changed his voice actor in I think the second season. Danny Tamborelli takes over for him. This episode, I mean, the idea of the episode is that they're going through Arnold's digestive system through each part of the digestion process, albeit sped up a little bit. So they go from the mouth, they go down the back of his throat, through the esophagus, they go into his stomach, and then into the intestines. Lucas, I have to be honest, this episode was actually integral to how I understood digestion as a kid. Whenever I think of my food digesting now, I'm cribbing from stuff I learned from the Magic School Bus.
You love to hear that.
Totally. And I imagine this isn't the only episode that has information that I still use today. I just can't think of any right now. But, the way that it's, basically from mouth to esophagus to stomach, then small intestine, then large intestine, and the picturing of it all actually is really helpful to a kid to understanding how it all works. It's not precise, and I actually kind of relearned when they get into the small intestine and they learn about the villi. Then I was like, oh, that's how the nutrients from your food gets absorbed into your bloodstream. I kind of forgot about that. So hey,
it's true. It's funny when we watch these shows intended for like fourth graders how much we truly do be relearning.
By the way, Arnold housed those olives. It's like a pickle jar of olives, and he ate the whole thing and trying to get the olive eating record for the school. As they're going through, I believe it's from the stomach to the small intestine. So I guess now's a good time to reveal why we chose this episode. Lucas, you had 3 particular ones in mind. And the reason that this episode popped into your head was because when they're going into the small intestine, there's a hole that goes from the stomach to the small intestine.
Now, Will, what type of hole?
Girl, that's a booty hole. Now,
yeah, I hadn't seen Magic School Bus in quite some time, so my most recent exposure was, of course, the memes.
Now, I just want to make sure that I'm clear about this. You didn't think that line was actually in the show, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay, because I thought maybe you did, and I was like, come on, man. But yeah, no, it's really funny. I discovered that first on Vine, I believe. But yeah, if you go look up on YouTube, girl, that's a booty hole. You know exactly what we mean. They travel through, when they get into the small intestine, they get up close and personal. They put on their scuba suits. And they're color personalized scuba suits, by the way. I wish I had my own color scheme as a kid. That would have been awesome. And then they go into the large intestine because they're essentially following the gum that Arnold accidentally swallowed through each part of the process. Like they encounter it in the stomach, and then it goes through the intestines, and Wanda gets stuck to it through the large intestine, and then eventually goes bungee jumping with it. As they drive through the large intestine, Lucas, there's a lot of brownish, dried stuff dripping off of the walls.
One's to wonder what that could conceivably be, huh?
I
don't know. I'm at a loss. I don't know, Will.
I was impressed, amazed, and shocked that this show got poop on it so blatantly. Like
I know it's kind of like it's. You could actually use this show as a measuring stick of what is acceptable on children's educational television. In the same way that in Austin Powers 2, when Austin Powers eats poop and the movie's still rated like PG-13, for years when studios were appealing to the MPAA ratings board or whatever, they would say, "Listen, you got to let us get this movie to be PG-13. Austin Powers ate poop."
It's a bit nutty. Yeah, and I just really appreciated that they were kind of straight up about it. Now, they didn't go like, ew, it's shit, or whatever, but it's just like, they make no bones about the fact that when you're in the large intestine, that's where the poop goes, and then they basically are just like, yeah, and then it goes to the toilet, and you know how that happens. So they're pretty straight up about it, and I appreciated that. And they weren't crass about it either. Although eventually they make a plan to go from the large intestine back up through Arnold's mouth. The bus probably tasted terrible. It was probably the worst. Probably had the poop burps for like the rest of the day.
Oh.
Hey, the show
I think
wasn't.
I ate before we recorded this episode.
Yeah, the show wasn't crass, but I can be because it's Patreon. At this point, what they need to do to get from the stomach to Arnold's mouth is they have to get him to drink something, preferably something that will create gas bubbles in his stomach that will help them float back up to the esophagus and then go through his mouth. But what Arnold wants to do, now this is a big-time party foul, and I say that as somebody who, when I was Arnold's age, I was a shameless mooch because I love to eat, I still do, but I mainly suppress those mooch tendencies now. But I was a lot more shameless about it then. Arnold just straight up looking to steal somebody's lunch, pretty low.
It's true. As you and I have both worked in offices before, and that sort of behavior, you might as well face the firing line. If you're going to be stealing people's lunches out of the fridge, oh my God.
Yeah, it's real low
down.
High
treason. Yeah, lower than low.
Now, here's another branded food that I immediately saw a parallel with in the real world. Because Arnold's really hungry. He's going through the other lunches, and he sees that Ralphie has a chocolate mallow blaster, which, first of all, great name. This basically, to me, looks like a wagon wheel.
Oh, I don't really know what a wagon wheel is. Is that like a half moon, kind of? Or like a Joe Louis?
It is very similar to a Joe Louis. It's more of the filling is, I think there might be like a cookie part to it, and the filling is a much stiffer marshmallow filling. The Joe Louis is a bit more like cream almost, No,
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Sure. Anyway, I kind of took it as a little bit of a wagon wheel, especially since, marshmallow blaster. Wanda uses the PA system from the bus while they're in their stomach, while they're in Arnold's stomach, to pretend that she's his conscience. And so instead of eating Ralphie's mallow blaster, they want him to drink Wanda's seltzer because Wanda is a much more kind and giving friend than Ralphie. By the way, this episode of TV is where I first found out what seltzer was when I was a kid.
Yeah, I feel like seltzer is really having a moment now with all the hard seltzers. Imagine if Arnold was drinking White Claw.
Man, who's bringing White Claw? So Wanda's bringing White Claw to school. Man, it's a tough life.
Go.
It's a tough life. She parties hard. I would love it if it was White Claw. Just like drink the pineapple White Claw. This is your conscience. Actually, that sounds more like my conscience.
Yeah, that's my conscience too.
Yeah, so he does eventually drink the seltzer and gives a big old burp, and the class exits him safely. And later on that day, when they get back, they bring him lunch, and they give him this cool award that is in the shape of a hero sandwich for being the coolest ride that there is. So Wanda had a great time, an even better time than an Action Mountain by being inside Arnold's digestive system. And of course, Arnold says, "Miss Frizzle, I swear I'll never miss another field trip ever." And then Miss Frizzle turns around and her dress, which we must note is part of her design, usually is themed towards whatever the field trip is, now has a T-Rex on it. And he says, maybe I'll wait till after the next one. And then we get into the other part of the show. Now, as much as I love the theme song of the Magic School Bus, this one gets stuck in my head, I think, even more. Is this the Magic School Bus? Magic School Bus? Magic School Bus? Me? Magic School Bus? Magic School Bus?
Now, I feel like is this the Magic School Bus's heart is in the right place in terms of trying to show, there's Magic School Bus has fans around the globe. And I'm not saying it's overtly stereotypical. I will say that some of the portrayals are a tad dated. Is this the Magic School Bus?
I think dated.
Everyone's more so wearing, let's say, the traditional garb of the country they're from than dressed just kind of in their normal everyday clothes, which is what they would actually be.
I think dated is the right word for it, and the example there is the kid in Russia who kind of looks like Ralphie. He's got like the what do you call it, the Cossack hat on, and he's in front of the Kremlin, and it's just like, okay, all right.
Yeah, it's like how every movie in Paris, every apartment in Paris, for some reason has a view of the Eiffel Tower in movies. Right? Like, why is Ralphie just hanging out in front of the Kremlin?
So yeah, at the end of every Magic School Bus episode on PBS, the PBS airings at least, and on Netflix, they have a segment where where the producer takes calls from fans of the show, people in the voice cast. Usually it's Malcolm Jamal Warner, who is an actor who was on, among other things, The Cosby Show. He normally plays the role, but this one is played by legendary voice actor Susan Blue, who has been in a bunch of Transformers series. So she plays the female producer. And the idea is that during the run of the show, when they're talking about, let's say, the digestive system, there's a bunch of stuff that they have to either kind of like accelerate for time, or they can't include, or stuff that they kind of just got wrong. And this is their opportunity to kind of fact check themselves and answer those frequently asked questions or observations that they kind of are expecting people will have.
And this was something that, so this whole segment, I remembered it once upon seeing it, but it's not something that I like, had stuck in my head. This is one of, when you see an ad from when you're really young that you had completely forgotten about, and all the memories come rushing back? That's how I felt during this part. And so I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about like the people calling from around the world. But it's really genius, because this is what we were talking about on the top of the episode, about how what's exciting about Magic School Bus is that it's the magic part, right? It's educational, but they still kind of play fast and loose in some respects with, shrinking a living school bus down. And this kind of gives them an out, like I was saying off top, to have their cake and eat it too, in that they're able to kind of fact check themselves. So before, like that guy in The Simpsons, all the Simpsons fans being like, well, actually, when they're, that episode where they're talking to the animators.
I hope someone was fired for that error.
Yeah, exactly. And to kind of have ironclad armor against that, they already fact checked themselves at the end of the episode.
I think this is really cool, and especially on a show that is focused on being scientific and for being, like almost 30 years old. I think this is something that every scientific show should have, regardless of whether it's for kids or not. I think they handle it in a pretty classy way. Like, I am really pleased that this ends up being part of the show. Now, I think that's something that I would take away from the Magic School Bus rides again, is that they don't have this producer segment, which I feel is kind of important. Like, the producer in this one admits that, like, the kid on the line is like, the digestive process actually takes hours, and she's like, yes, you're right, but we only have 20 minutes of TV, so we got to do it somehow. And it's just like, or like, that's not where, they didn't go out the way they should have gone out of Arnold. And she's just like, yeah, but do you expect us to really show that on TV? Just like kind of common sense stuff, but to answer the questions that kids or people watching the show might have. I love it. I really like this.
Yeah, I can't believe they addressed the fact that they didn't show like a literal booty hole on TV. I was very surprised to hear them be like, yeah, there's a reason we didn't show that.
But I also think that there absolutely are people who are that pedantic. We see that for people who are watching friggin' Marvel movies. They're just like, well, that can't happen. Or why was it like this when it would actually be like this? Or talk about time travel. Just like, well, because it's a movie, because it's for kids, because it's a cartoon. Like, okay? So I think it's really cool of them to get out in front of that, and they did it in a way that's not like preachy or being like, leave us alone. They're just answering questions, which is part of the scientific process. So that is that episode of the Magic School Bus. Lucas, looking back on it, this episode and the show in general, what do you think?
I think the Magic School Bus is really something special. It's that upper echelon of educational television. If there's a Mount Rushmore of educational shows, up there is definitely, of course, Sesame Street is probably like the A1 GOAT of all time, but Magic School Bus definitely needs its due. I think it's a really creative concept that I think many other shows and books have since ripped off. Sort of the magical realism. There's a Magic Tree House, and there's the what's the trio again that we were talking about in the Discord?
The Time Warp Trio.
The Time Warp Trio. All of those. The Magic School Bus walked so those shows could run, right? So,
yes.
Super influential. Everybody knows Miss Frizzle. Everybody knows about making mistakes and getting messy. So yeah, there's not much more to say about it besides it's kind of iconic.
I think that you have said a mouthful, and I think that that's exactly correct. This show, and the thing is that I was looking at the history of it, and there really is a period between when it was on syndication in the 2000s and between when it was either on Netflix or revived with a sequel series, that it kind of seemed to go out of people's minds. And I don't think it deserves that. I think I would show this in schools. I would still have this on TV where everybody can see it. Now, I know that most families have Netflix, and like that's pretty typical for, the middle income or whatever income Canadian, American, North American household, but I think that this show should be available to everybody. It's still a lot of fun to watch. It's still funny. The animation is still colorful and it pops and it's really fun to look at. The voice acting is very good, especially from people like Lily Tomlin. I think she makes this show with her performance. I cannot say enough good things about the Magic School Bus. I don't think, other than maybe the odd like animation error or something like that, so that honestly, I'm willing to forgive, because a lot of shows at that time had animation errors and shows still do. So, it happens. I'm forgiving of that. I think this is great, and I think I'm going to watch some more. I mentioned at the top of the show that I have basically Netflix to watch The Last Dance, and that's it. But I think I'm going to get in some more episodes of the Magic School Bus. I want to watch the episode where Edward James Olmos plays Carlos's dad.
Oh my goodness. You dropped that one on me.
Now, that one I gotta see. Well, I'm glad that we both agree about this, and I hope that you also have an appreciation for the Magic School Bus. If you don't, check out an episode or two. I really think that it's time for you to revisit it, and I hope that you have, as we have done the same thing here on For the Kids. Lucas, it's your turn to pick. What is the next PBS Kids show that we're going to be talking about?
Ooh, let me pull up the list real quick. I forgot that it was my turn. Let's take a look here. PBS Kids shows... Don't worry, Will. It's not Yvonne of the Yukon. That I can assure you.
I can't imagine that was on PBS with all the literal shit they showed on that show. I don't think PBS would have gone for it, but let me just check and make sure. No, it's on CTV though. They thought that was appropriate for YTV. Okay, we're good for now, but maybe someday we'll tangle with
Will.
Yukon. Yes, sir.
Everybody's trying to keep busy during the quarantine. People have taken up different sort of hobbies. Finally getting to binge watch that show you've been waiting to binge watch, or try to watch The Last Dance. Some people, like myself, I'm still trying to read Dune. That's been the meme of 2020, is it's taking me forever to read Dune, but I'm trying my best. Literature, and who knows more about the classic stories and novels and books of our time than Wishbone.
Yo! All right. I'm excited. I can't wait to... Oh, excellent pick. This has been something ever since we had this idea, just like, oh yeah, we're going to get around to Wishbone. I'm so excited. I can't wait to watch Wishbone. Man, good one. I'm glad you came across that one. That's an awesome pick.
Yeah, now we just got to pick which episode to watch.
Ooh, that's going to be tough. And we're going to need your help with that one, patrons. So thank you for listening to this episode of For the Kids, a PBS Kids podcast. If you have an idea of which Wishbone episode we should cover, they usually have to do with a book or something. So, it's been decades since I've watched a Wishbone. So, if you have an idea of which one we should watch, please let us know either in the comments below on Patreon or on the Discord. Please and thank you. Also, if you have any memories about the Magic School Bus or any observations of it as you've rewatched it recently, anything on the new show, anything like that, feel free to leave it there as well, Patreon or on the Discord. Well, Lucas, I really have to commend your pick there, and I will also make sure to keep you updated as I go through The Last Dance.
Yes. Stay tuned for that, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll have to... For the Kids will become... We'll have to think of a funny name for that one. All right, so for Lucas Mancini, my name is Will Young, and that was PBS.